My name is Jack Thurman. I'm from Mitchell, South Dakota, and I was born in 1925, and my birthday's on September the 27th, and I am the oldest of 15 children raised on the farm in South Dakota, and I joined the Marine Corps in Fort Snelling. And then when I was inducted, then from there I went to San Diego, and that's where I did my boot training. And then from boot training, when I went into the, is it all right if I point, the Carlson Raiders? That's what that is up here, the Carlson Raiders. And then they had the Edson Raiders. And they broke the two of us up to form the 5th Division. And the Edson Raiders, Carlson Raiders, we operated from submarines. And we would operate around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And we would surface and inflate our rubber rafts and move on into the beach. And we would do a lot of demolition work. Anything that looks, that should be destroyed, that's what we did. And so we wired up everything, and then we all had a signal to move on back to the submarine, and that's what we did. And the submarine would subsurface, go down, and then we were out to sea. So that's what I did with the Carlson Raiders for about 8 months. And then they broke the Carlson Raiders up and formed the 5th Division. And that's where I came in, 5th Division. And I was in the Carlson Raiders, I went right into the rifle group. And the first company I went into was Fox Company.
What islands did you go to?
I didn't get that far.
You were just training with them?
Yeah.
And then they folded everybody into the division?
5th Division, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. They broke up the Carlson Raiders and the Edson Raiders. And the cavalry. At that time, we did have a cavalry. They broke them up to form. We knew we were getting into something big. That 5th Division was growing and growing and growing. So we knew we were headed for something. I landed on Iwo Jima February the 19th, about 8 o'clock in the morning. And you want me to get into that? Okay. And about 8 o'clock in the morning, we were in Saipan area, and we boarded the LSTs from our troop ship there in Saipan, And from there, we were in LSTs to Iwo Jima early in the morning. And we came up on the north end of Iwo Jima and moved along the east side. And the first thing that, I don't know how much detail you want me to, but I can get into some detail. We were going down the United States side of Iwo Jima, I'll put it that way. A lot of people don't know which way is east and west and so on. And so we were moving in on our troop ships there in Saipan, and I need to bring our troop transferring from the troop ships to the LST, and so we were doing that next morning, real early in the morning, and I told the guys, I'm going to sit on the top side deck here. I want to get the first glimpse of Iwo Jima. So So I crawled on top of a truck, and I don't know what was in there. And about 3 other guys joined me, and we all laid down on top of that truck. Well, somewhere in the morning, about 4 o'clock, 3 or 4 o'clock, somewhere in there, we heard the thunder of artillery, and we had fallen asleep. I raised up and I looked over in the direction of Iwo, and I could see bright yellow and red flashes against the sky. Just boom, 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 and that had to be the artillery, the battleships unloading on Iwo Jima. I just couldn't believe the mountain was just like a Christmas tree, just flashes everywhere, and then also the island. And we thought, how in the world can anybody live under that? So somewhere around 3 o'clock or so in the morning, there was a explosion that woke us up. There was 3 or 4 guys up there with me on the top of that truck. And we raised up, and I showed all this red and yellow, exploding fire against the mountain of Iwo Jima. And then shortly after that, well, we got orders to go down below, below deck, and which we did. And man your Amtrak, so over the speaker. So I wanted to get on the outside of this LST because I wanted to get my first glimpse of Mount Suribachi. And so I was able to do that. And when they opened the doors, we were about, I would say, a good 1,500 yards out into the ocean from shore, Iwo Jima shore. And when they opened up them doors, I never saw so much exploding artillery between the LST and the beach of Iwo Jima. It was just like a forest of funnel of shooting skyward. And we thought, where in the world are they getting all this artillery? Because we felt pretty strong that we had pretty much covered Iwo. And so when we saw all this, we were about, like I say, maybe 1,500 yards out. When we saw this, all of this exploding fire, we saw this, we kind of looked at each other and shook our head, some of us guys aren't going to make it back. We're going to stay right here. And so we got the orders to launch, and I came out on the outside line. I came out, so I was between our LST and Mount Suribachi, and so I got a good view. And as we were moving in towards Iwo, I saw a big battleship, dark blue. That thing was huge, and I had no idea what it was. Neither did anybody else. And so we ended up going around the tail end of this battleship, and I looked up. I felt like I was looking at a 10-story building. It was so big, and the Pennsylvania battleship is what it was. And as we came around the stern, we had orders to crawl alongside of the battle wagon, and then when we got under the 16-inch cannons, was to turn and move in towards Iwo Jima. And so between the Pennsylvania and the beach of Iwo Jima, I would say maybe we were probably a good 50, I don't know, maybe 1,000 yards from the shore, if not less. So we turned in, and as we were going alongside that Pennsylvania battle wagon, the power of those cannons was so strong that the ship tilted. The cannons were firing into the island, and the wagon was actually tilted like that. We turned, 90-degree turn, and headed for the beach. And the Tennessee battle wagon was firing all the time. And We were moving in towards the beach, and just to give you an idea how close we were to those cannons, terror guns, I guess is what they call them, and the powder bags were still burning when they landed down in our Amtrak, and smoke and fire were still burning on that stuff. And so the exploding of those terror guns was so ferocious that it just felt like your head was going to split open. And we didn't have earplugs at that time. And so between the Tennessee battle wagon and the shore, I would say, I venture to say maybe 800 yards to 1,000 yards, someplace in that area. All this took place, and somebody yelled out, a dive bomber coming in at 3 o'clock. And as I looked up, that dive bomber was coming down like that, and his wing guns were firing. And then meanwhile, the Amtrak to my right took a shell and just blew that thing there was nothing left of that Amtrak. I saw bodies and parts of the Amtrak flying through the air and coming down into the water and forming a whirlpool. And I saw a canteen and a pack swirling around in that water. And there was already blood in the water. And what I'm driving at is, our beach assignment was Red Beach 1. And we were already in red water. So this dive bomber was coming down, and it looked like he was going to crash into us, because he was coming down pretty fast, and his guns were firing away, and we thought he was going to hit us. He was just coming that close to us, and I was ready to jump out of my Amtrak. Well, he went right by us, and I looked up. I saw the pilot's head hanging out of the canopy. His goggles were hanging out of the canopy, and the gunner behind him was still alive, but the pilot was dead. And down he came, and he crashed into the Amtrak to my left. So we were the only Amtrak going in at that point on Red Beach 1. And there was also blood there on that side of the attack. And so we had all this blood out there in the water already, and we were landing on Red Beach 1. You know, it was we were kind of looking at each other. This is kind of weird, you know. And so we went on in, and like I say, we're the only one going in. And the Amtrak's, do you know what an Amtrak is? They got the steel tracks, and they can spin around and anchor on the beach. And so as soon as they dropped that end gate, we were out of that Amtrak. I mean, there were bullets hitting that thing like crazy, and because it's all steel. And so we ran out of there. I don't think I got 10, 15 feet, or if not less, and I got hit. And it knocked me down, and I got hit through the canteen, and the bullet went through my canteen handle, and then the cup itself, and then the canteen. And the canteen was full of water. And I think that's what saved me from that bullet going all the way through my leg, because I had a pretty good bulge on the inside of right at my hip. And I had a pretty bad hip for a few days, but I was able to move around. And as I was getting ready to get up and move on, I heard somebody call out. I said, "I need help." I looked over at this guy, and here his whole backside was afire with phosphorus. And he was rolling around trying to get his pack off, and he was getting the whole way strapped like this, trying to pull it off. And I got over there. Took me some time to get there. And I dropped down beside him and rolled him over, and I started to pull that pack off. And that phosphorus, I tried to scrape it out of the way and all that kind of thing, trying to pull that pack off. And he was not screaming, hollering, or anything. He was moaning, of course. And I started to use my fingers to wipe that phosphorus off, and that didn't work because it was burning my fingers. And then I pulled my K-bar out and I started scraping that stuff off his back. And about that time, our corpsman come running up. He said, "Jack, you don't do that, you know." So I got up and took off. And as I turned around, I jumped over a dead Japanese. And there were dead Japanese everywhere. And we figured that the B-29s were bombing Iwo Jima every time they went over. The B-29s had to pass over Iwo Jima to get to Japan. And when they got to Iwo Jima, they'd go up an elevation to get away from any aircraft. And consequently, they were using fuel to do this. And then when they get past Iwo Jima, well, they drop over the ocean and come on into Japan, and then they go back up an elevation again. The B-29s must have, every time they dropped a load of bombs, well, they would catch these Japanese out in the open. And they were just bloated bodies everywhere, just stunk to high heaven, you know. And so I jumped over as I was jumping over the body of this dead Japanese, I just happened to look down at his feet. His toes were together, and the large toe was sticking out like this, but it was also engulfed in the shoe itself. And I thought, well, that's for, you know, sniper dueling in palm trees. Well, I was proven wrong. Now, from the 19th of February till the 26th of March, that I would like to say that the fighting went on all through the night, and I had people asking me questions, how could you sleep? I said, you just kind of pass out and then, you know, wake up and move on. And that's just about the way I know, about the only way I can describe it. You know, you just kind of faint, and from exhaustion, and when you look up, you get up and just move on, and that's the way the whole battle was. Ira Hayes and myself became real close buddies in the Fox Company, and he would give me a hard time because I couldn't speak Navajo, and he says, "You crazy Navajo, you can't speak Navajo." I don't know how he said it, but something like that. And so we were close buddies, and then on this gung-ho picture that you see, when you're looking directly at it, I'm in this end of the picture, and Ira Hayes is kneeling right in front of me. And we did that on purpose because we wanted to be together. And then I don't know how much you want me to say about Ira Hayes, but I'm going to I defend him. He was not a drunkard. He drank, sure, to join the group and be one of the group there in D.C., and he just couldn't handle it. And he asked to come back to our company in the Hawaiian Islands, and so, or no, we were in action on Iwo Jima, and they pulled him out of the firing range to do some bond selling there in D.C., and then he wanted to come back to our outfit there on Iwo Jima, and so we kind of drifted apart thereafter because of reassignments and so on.
Who was Ira Hayes, and what was his duty there?
Well, Ira Hayes was a Navajo Indian, and he was a code talker, and he became famous for his code talking. And Ira was, like I said a little earlier, trying to teach me how to speak Navajo. And but he became famous for his code talking, and then also Ira and myself and I would say part of the 27th and the 28th were taking that mountain, and Ira was one of them. And the way things gel together, you go with it. And I ended up in the rifle group to cover the, because at that time the flag raisers was a little bit of a ways from me. They weren't right beside me or anything like that. And so, but we could hear ricocheting on the rocks around that flag. And so we were doing all we could do as far as trying to cover. And Ira Hayes was happened to be in the area where the flag raising took place. And they had to move fast. There was no hanging around. You grabbed that with an old pipe. I saw the pipe, and they had to jam that in the ground as fast as you could, and then you had to come up with I think how they tied that flag to that pipe. What the heck was it? It wasn't wire or anything like that. It was some kind of cloth, but I forget exactly how that worked. But to tie that flag to that pole. And so Ira was in on that. He was one of the original flag raisers. And when I was on that mountain down alongside of it, why he was the one that got me in his gung-ho picture. And I said, oh, I hollered back at him. I said, oh, you got enough guys up there. He said, get up here. He says, you're one of us. And so I got up there, and that's how I got into that picture. I was down alongside the mountain, and Ira Hayes was hollering at me. He says, get up here. And he was a corporal, and I was a PFC. So I pretty much had to follow orders. And he says, get up here. So I crawled up there and got into the group. Joe Rosenthal wanted this picture of the rifle group, and that's what that is. And that's where the gung-ho came from. And so it's kind of interesting how that turned out. And then Joe Rosenthal took a couple other pictures of myself, especially the one where I came out of the cave there on Mount Suribachi. We were detailed to look for snipers on that mountain, which we did. And we started on the ocean side and circled around that mountain looking for any caves. But before we did that, we went down in the mountain. Me and about 4 other guys went down in that mountain and looking for snipers down there. And we didn't last any more than 3 or 4 hours, if not less, because it was so ungodly hot. The floor of that volcano was hot, and we had to get out of there. So we crawled up out of the mountain onto the ocean side of the Mount Suribachi. And as you see the mountain on the map, circle like that, and then circles on down, we call this the ocean side, and then the island side on this side. So we got out of there, and so then we started looking for caves, snipers on the ocean side of Iwo Jima. There was, I'm kind of dancing around a little bit. There's so much ugly stuff that took place. And so we were moving around from the ocean side to the island side of Iwo Jima. And I was up just about, maybe 50 feet below the top of that mountain. And we found a a cave. And the corporal that was there, I was just a PFC, and the corporal that was there, he says, okay, close it off. And I says, well, sir, I'd like to go in. I'd like to see what is there, if there's something that we can use and help our advancement. And he says, you sure you want to go in there? And I said, yes, sir, I'd like to go. So the hole was only about that big around, just enough for me to get down on my hands and knees and crawl down that cave. And I crawled a good, a good 18 feet or so. And before I got down, I had to take my pack off and rifle, and the rifle was too big, and I asked for a smaller weapon, which was a carbine. And I took my cartridge belt off because it was just that tight. And so my buddies were standing there, and he says, Thurman, you're crazier than hell to go in there. But I went in, and I got down to the end of that cave, using my knees and elbows and whatever to get down. And it was hot in there. It was, that volcano was still alive. And I got down to the end of the cave, and I looked up on my right-hand side, and here was a wooden box about that wide and about that high and about that long. And I thought, well, I'm gonna pull that thing out of there. It was on a dirt shelf. And I was in the, like I say, I was in the Carlson Raiders, and I became a demolition expert, and I'm well aware of booby traps, and so I searched that thing before I moved it. And I got it, so it looked like it was all right to me, so I pulled the box off that shelf and placed it in front of me, and then I used my toes and knees and elbows to get out of that cave. And as I got out, the NCO, there was an NCO standing there, and he says, let's open it up, see what we got. And what it was maps of all the artillery positions of Iwo Jima, all of the artillery positions of Iwo Jima. It was just unbelievable. And the map that I've got shows all the dark spots are artillery positions. And he says, so I was getting ready to ask permission to take it down to the head command, that box. And before I could say anything, that NCO says, okay, close that cave off. I'm going to take this down to the head command. And that bothered me somewhat. And so then, after he left, this is quite a story. After he left, I told, there was another NCO. See, when we hit the beach on the long side of Mount Suribachi, 27th and 28th, when we hit that beach where we mixed in together, you know, you just mingled in together, and that's why we got 28th and 27th regiments. So, in on this detail, we didn't know each other, which made no difference at all, because we were trained to train together, to work together, and fight together, and it didn't make any difference who you were. We just automatically fell in line, and so this NCO says, okay, let's just turn it off, close it off. And I said, well, sir, I'd like to go in again. And he says, you sure you want to go back in there? And I said, yes, sir, I want to go back in. And he says, well, okay. So once again, my buddies, you know, says, you're crazier than hell to go in there, Thurman. So, but I wanted to go back in. And I got down to the end of the cave, and I was looking at the cave, the ceiling of the cave that I was at the edge of. Well, the one I was crawling through was just like a maybe 18-inch or 24-inch cave. And then when I got down at 18 feet or so, it looked like to me the ceiling raised up to about 5 feet and the floor of the two caves were together. And and it raised up about 5 feet. I was laying there and wondering if I should go. The cave turned into the mountain about maybe 10, 12 feet from me. It turned into the mountain. And I thought, well, I wonder if I ought to go down there and see what's around, around that corner. And just as I was getting ready to do that, a Japanese came around the corner of that cave down there, and he had his arm up here like this. And I couldn't see a grenade in his hand or anything like that. And I thought that maybe he wants to surrender. So what I did, I had my rifle over here, and I went like this to him, and he darted back into the mountain. He was a young Japanese, and evidently he lost his nerve to surrender to me. And so then I laid there for another couple of minutes. I thought, well, I wonder if I ought to go down in this cave and look around the corner and see what's in that larger part of the cave. And I thought maybe that might be too dangerous because if he was here, there are others around that corner. And I thought if I come out where I'm out and expose myself, there's no way I could protect myself. They could take care of me real short order. And so I decided I better get out of here. So I did. I crawled back out of the cave. And marked it, and what I did, when I was in Iwo here in March, I wanted to find this cave, and I wanted to find something else, and that was another cave opening that I did myself, and I had a buddy of mine stand where I crawled in, stand on the floor of that cave so I could see his feet. And then I crawled around the side of the mountain towards the flag. The flag was right above me. And I kept watching his feet so I could figure out just about where the floor is to that cave. And I figured out roughly just about where that cave turned into the mountain. And so I thought, well, this is a good spot right here. So I started digging, and another guy came on running up and he says, what are you doing? I said, I want to dig a little concave opening here for dynamite and TNT. I'm going to blow a hole in this mountain. And I had six blocks of TNT, 3 sticks of dynamite, and I jammed that in there. And the idea is when you're working with something like that, you jam it into a hole, and if you don't put something behind it, it's going to blow out this way, because that's the easiest way for that explosion to go. So I took my rifle and butt and jammed the lava rocks or whatever else I could get in there, and I stuck the dynamite in there first, and then put the rocks and stuff behind it. And I put maybe about 1.5 feet of wick to it. And I said, okay, clear the area. I'm going to light it up. And so they cleared the area and went around the corner. And I lit the wick and ran over where they are. I blew a hole in the side of that mountain. Believe it or not, it was at least this big around. Oh, maybe about 6 feet opening, and about 5 foot high. And I nailed where that tunnel turned into the mountain. I couldn't believe it. And I looked into the mountain, and this one Marine come running up and says, "You gonna go in there, sir?" I said, "No, I don't think I'd better. They might be waiting for me." And well, says, what I'd like to do, though, is have a guard on this cave. Don't close it up. Use it for our own surveillance. And so they did. And so I was trying to find that cave here in March. I couldn't find it. And I couldn't find the other cave. And the reason being is I heard some time back where Japan planted a seed over that whole island. And I thought, what in the world are they doing that for? And I didn't realize it until I got on that island, which was, it's been 67 years since I've been on that island. And all of the seeds turned into trees that were about 8 foot, 6 to 8 foot high. They were the ugliest looking things I ever saw in my life. And they covered up everything. And we were asking each other, why did they do this? You know. Later on, I got to thinking about it. And later on, I said, okay, I think I know why they did this. They wanted to cover the battle scars of Iwo Jima up because it was just solid with stuff. And I couldn't get anywhere. We were moving along the Modiamni Airfield number 2. No, I'm sorry, number 1. It was still number 1. And that was a big airstrip there. And we got caught by a bunker. And what I mean is they opened fire on us. And all we could do was hit the deck, you know. And I was just lucky. I got a bullet crease right through my helmet right up here from one of those riflemen. And so I was lucky. And we were calling for support from the ships, battle wagons, and also any ground artillery. And we were pinned down around 10 o'clock that morning until around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, we were nailed. We couldn't do anything, couldn't move at all. Finally, a Sherman tank came in along with a half-track. And when I was in the Carlson Raiders, I was taught how to handle a tank if they can't see where they're going. And I could see he didn't know where he was at, you know. And I ran out in front of the tank, and I gave him directions. And what you do is that if you want him to turn this way, you open up your hand. And the same thing over here. So I wanted to turn to my left, and he did. He whipped the tank around, and then I ran out in front of the tank and give him, you know, like this, fire in that direction. And then I got the hell out of there. There was bullets hitting that tank, something unbelievable. And how I was running alongside the tank, headed for the rear end of that tank, and I don't know how I didn't get hit. I thought any minute I'm going to get hit. And I made it to the rear end of that tank. And boy, I'm telling you, the tank and the half-track and I think it was the New York battle wagon that was offshore, got zeroed in on that bunker also, because we had that bunker nailed. And they had the Japanese build it to where they have a slot like that, about that long for firing out of, you know. And so we were you know, zeroing in on that bunker for quite a while, and we were also pinned down. And I yelled out, I says, I'm going to go around behind this bunker and see if there's an opening that I can get into. And so I moved around, and I found an opening. It was about 24 inches wide, and the bunker walls were at least 3 foot wide in concrete. And that opening slanted. And I figured maybe the reason for that was so the battleships can't fire into that opening, and you know, and do some damage. And so I found this opening, and I looked around the edge of the opening. I didn't see anything. I moved maybe about 3 feet. That wall was about 3 feet wide. And as I got to the corner of that opening, I looked around real quick to see if there were any Japanese still alive or whatever. And here were 5 Japanese lined up against the wall, from foot to head, 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 with the rifle stuck in underneath their chin and their toe stuck in the trigger. And they just committed suicide. It was February, and it was cool. and I could see the steam rolling off their head. Brains were scattered all over their buddies behind them. But that's what they used that tool for, to fire that rifle and commit suicide. And I can understand the suicide. It took me a while, but to figure out why suicide. This is a religion for them. This is a religion. And then also too, if you don't come back home. It'd be embarrassing for you to come back home. And so the suicide with the Japanese has its place. And so I went inside the bunker just to make sure everything was secured, stink and smell. Gee, well, and so those tennis shoes, or what do you want to call them, with those toes sticking out, that's where that came from. That's what I was looking at when I jumped over the body of this one Japanese, and that was weird. And so I came out of the bunker and I yelled out, "Bunker secured, move on." And all the time, whenever we could grab a little sleep or whatever while we did it. But so between Mount Suribachi and the airstrip Moriyama Airfield number 1, all hell was breaking loose through there. And I mean, we had one Top Gun battle. I mean, we were just lucky that any of us got out of there alive, and so when we secured that bunker, we moved on, and I got into a Moriyama Field number 2, and see there was number 1, number 2, and number 3. They had just started building number 3 airstrip, and so I just got into that number 2 airstrip that was just partially built, and this was around 3 o'clock in the morning, and the commander called out, "We need ammunition. I need volunteers for ammunition," and I jumped up and volunteered, and so there were there were 3 of us that volunteered to go get ammunition. And we knew roughly where the ammunition dump was, which was a bomb hole. And we ran across the clearing and jumped into this bomb hole and grabbed a box of ammunition, threw it on our shoulders, and we were out of there. And there was myself and 2 other guys that were with me, and we were running pretty much in line, and all of a sudden I could hear bullets whistling by my head. And the guy to my right was in line with me, and that's why I was hearing the whistling of those bullets. And all of a sudden he took a hit and went face first down into the black sand. He was dead before he even hit the ground. His ammunition box bounced out in front of him, and I yelled at the guy to my left. I see gun smoke, and I yelled at him to follow me. And what it was a mound of dirt about this high, with palm trees, maybe about 6 palm trees, and they were false palm trees. Didn't realize that till later on, and so I ran around and he followed behind me, and when I got behind that sniper's nest, I started digging a hole right away, and something else that I learned with the Carlson Raiders. So I started digging a hole right away, and the guy that was with me says, "What are you doing that for?" And I says, "I need to get in behind this sniper. I'm not going to get out in front, because he'll nail us. So I need to get in behind this sniper," because I knew he was in there. And so I dug a hole and did the same thing as I did that hole on the mountain. some dynamite and TNT, and took my gun butt and jammed out dynamite and stuff into that hole, and I says, okay, you better move, get over there behind that rock, take cover, because this is going to be one huge explosion. And I set that wick off and blew that sniper's nest all to pieces. I mean, it was just, wow, just like that. And there were 3 Japanese in that sniper's nest. And I went around to the front. There was only 2 Japanese that were on this side. I know it's hard for you to visualize, but there were 2 Japanese laying right here. And then I went around to see if there was any more Japanese, and they were dead. Those 2 Japanese were been dead for quite a while. They were yellow, and their skin was tough and all that. I went over to this other Japanese, and you're going to find this hard to believe. It was early in the morning. It was just daylight, and I looked down. That blast blew his body in half. As I was standing there looking down at the body, this part here was the part I was looking at, and the other part was about from here to that door. And as I was looking down at the body, his heart was hanging out past his rib cage, and his heart was still beating. I couldn't believe it. And he was a young-looking Marine, and I got emotional there for you have to do it. You don't want to have him kill somebody else, because that whole area there was an opening area. Can you imagine how many Marines they must have killed? And so I had to wipe him out. And this other Marine was looking at the other body, other part of his body, and he kept running up to me and he said, "Hey, look," he says, "look, I got some pictures." And I showed the pictures of the family, of this Japanese in uniform and the family and all that. So it makes you feel kind of bad, that you got to do what you have to do, And so I told this guy I was with, I says, "We got to move out." And I says, "Let's go back and get this guy's ammunition box that was killed." And he said, "What are you going to do that for?" I says, "We're going to take his ammunition box back with us to the company, because that's what he wanted." So he says, "Okay." So we carried that ammunition box between the 2 of us, and the ammunition box on our shoulders. If we got hit, we'd still be moving around in the sky somewhere. But that's what I wanted to do. So we, thank God, got out of there. And to this day, I don't know what happened to him. But you think about having to leave a guy laying out in the open like that, but there's nothing you can do about that. And war is war. And so then we stayed for, maybe a couple of days around that airport. And it gave us good coverage, and we knew roughly where the enemy was out in front of us. And so we had quite a battle there for a while. Actually, we were supposed to go to Okinawa first. And then all of a sudden, Iwo Jima came into the picture. And the reason for that was that the B-29s that were loading up in Saipan to make a bombing raid on Japan and had to fly over Iwo Jima was causing a lot of disaster and losses. Did I explain that to you? Huh? No. Oh, okay. So when the B-29 flew over Iwo Jima, they would go up in altitude to get away from the anti-aircraft. And then they would come down over the ocean to conserve fuel. And then when they got into Japan, they would do the same thing again. And so what was going on was they were using up all our fuel. And they were crash landing between Iwo Jima and Japan. And the PBYs would come out there and pick up as many of these crew as they could possibly pick up, but they couldn't get them all picked up. And so they had to take off and leave the rest of the crew floating around the ocean. And so when we heard that we were going to land on Iwo Jima, the first question was, Iwo Jima, I never heard of it. And then we found out why. And then that was one of the reasons to the PBYs just couldn't load up everybody. And they would come back and all of the crew that were left overnight were gone. So it was figured that the sharks got them. And so boy, when we heard that, we were going to take Iwo Jima, period. And so that was the reason for having to take Iwo Jima and get that out of the way. And I was on the airstrip. I'm way ahead of myself here, if you don't mind me backing up a little bit. Motoyama Airfield number 1 was right next to Mount Suribachi. So when we landed, made our beach landing, we were there all day between Suribachi and Motoyama Airfield number 1. And I was along one side of the airstrip there. We pretty much did what we thought we should do. You know, we didn't wait for orders or anything, but in some ways we did take orders. But it worked out to where, hey, you know, use your head a little bit. And so I saw all these Japanese fighter planes, you know, piled up along the airstrip. Found out later that the B-29s, when they would fly over, they'd bomb that airstrip and destroy those Japanese Zeros. So that's what happened there. And so I was searching through those Japanese Zeros for snipers. And I heard somebody holler across the airstrip. He says, hey, he says, I need help over here. And so I jumped up and took off, and I ran across the airstrip, and it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I ran across the airstrip, and I jumped down beside him, and he says, damn, am I glad to see you. And I said, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. The B-29 had crash landed on the airstrip. I saw the first B-29 come in, and there were 3 of them, and there were the 2 that were coming up the rear, and they crash landed in the ocean. They ran out of fuel. And those guys ran out on the wingtips and jumped into the water, and they were out there for a ways. And I thought, boy, I hope you guys can swim. And the first B-29 coming in was just high enough to where he was going to make that airstrip, because the airstrips were built up off of the ground there pretty much about 8-10 feet. And the nose of that B-29 hit the airstrip. And I never saw such a big plane all my life. It hit the end of that airstrip, bounced up, skidded, went down into another bomb hole, and the nose picked it up, bounced it up again, did that twice. And the B-29 finally came to a screeching halt. Well, what happened was, and he was right straight out in front of me. And and this is after I took a location on the other side of that airstrip. And so the guys jumped out of those B-29s as fast as they could jump out. And this one airman come running over there towards me, because I motioned for him to come over, you know. And so he come running over towards me, and he jumped into my foxhole, and he says, damn, am I glad to see you. And I said, well, I'm glad to see you too, but get your butt out of here, because I'm moving out. And he was a major. I've never gotten over that. He didn't question anything. He was gone. And so I I feel that the Japanese Zeros were destroyed by the B-29s, probably been ripped apart. And later on that day, we started scurrying around, trying to, there were snipers everywhere. I mean, they were just unloading everywhere. And I was searching on the opposite side of the airstrip that I was sitting in and or anchoring in. And I didn't get much more to do. I just always had a pin down because the Japanese had that area pretty well covered. And so we pretty much had to take cover for the rest of the day until dark. And then you could do some things that, that you had to do in the dark. And there's a lot of light at night on the islands, and so that kind of ended that little episode there. And then we moved on to Borneo Airfield number 2, and there were pillboxes everywhere. See, I can't talk about 24 hours because there's just not enough time to describe that. I mean, all through this, there were Marines getting killed, and I saw one Marine get hit from the backside. He just bodily twisted in midair, and so I saw a lot of that kind of stuff. And at Modium Airfield number 2, we were advancing around the end of that airstrip, which was about built up as high as this room. And somebody yelled out, "Minefield!" So, and here I was right in the middle of a minefield with my buddy Tucker. And I looked over at Tucker, and there was nothing I could do for him. And I ran over there to him and knelt down beside him and took his right arm, and I says, "Help's coming, Tuck. Hang in there." And his eyes rolled and looked at me, and that was all he could say. And then his arm fell away. And so that was the end of everything. That kind of went on, that kind of stuff all went on. And so I turned around and I retraced my footsteps to get out of there. And that's how I got out of that minefield. And I thought I was going to be gone any minute, but I was lucky. And as we were moving through the island and moving around bodies and whatever, and bodies that were all torn up from artillery fire, and all the way through there, I saw bloodstains in the black sand, and helmets ripped off, packs ripped off, legs and arms ripped off. And I put in my book, I says I couldn't help but say that the bloodstains were not Japanese bloodstains. They were all Marines, because the Japanese could take cover in the cave, and we had to expose ourselves. And I explained why we had to expose ourselves was because they could hide in the caves, and it would take us forever to take that island. So when we hit that beach, we just moved right in. We didn't hesitate or anything, just kept moving in. And when I saw smoke coming out of a crack of a rock or whatever, I'd fire away as I was running by, and kept running. And at one point, I was running across this opening trying to find cover, and I felt a tug on my foot. My heel was ripped off my shoe, And I came down on it. It felt good, so I kept running. I just didn't stop. And there was a lot of that kind of thing that happened during that battle.
When you were attacking or having to deal with the pillboxes, did you have to attack the pillboxes yourself as infantry, or did you get the tanks to come help and support you when you were doing that?
In some ways it was kind of different than you think, simply because we pretty much scattered out. We were never in a bunch, and I ended up being along with others, by myself several times, and and you have to kind of more or less think for yourself. And the rest of the guys were doing the same thing. You just, well, when you go through training and all that, the training is good, but when you get into actual battle, this is different, and so that's what we were looking at. It was different, and I wanted to mention here about another thing that took place with when we a lot of the battle was in the middle of the island, pretty much a lot of it was, and so a lot of the things that happened were in the middle of the island, and another buddy of mine that we didn't stick together too often, too much, just simply because it was too dangerous, and but we had to be together at times, in other words, to team up and be strong, and so when Ray and I did a lot of sniper hunting, and we knew right away, we didn't need to be told. We'd scatter out and take an opposite point so that we wouldn't be together and get nailed together, and so you get a lot of training in Camp Pendleton or whatever, but once you're in the battlefield, there are times when you have to think about you got to make some quick decisions, in other words, and so there was a lot of that. I made line corporal there on Iwo Jima. My commander gave me orders: Thurman, take Hills 116, I think it was. Take 4 men with you, and from that I was just a PFC, and I made line corporal. What they say is line corporal. I'm proud of that. I'm a sergeant right now, but I'm proud of that line corporal. And it was an all-night affair also, to where you had to make the quick decisions. You couldn't, because nobody else is there to, tell you what to do. The commander and so on, they were tied up. We could see that real quick, that they had to be protected, because you needed somebody to do the coaching. So you had to protect your commander, and this is the reason for the commander being secluded and covered and all that has been misquoted. There's a reason for it. If you don't have a commander, you get lost some ways. So you'd better protect him. And this one lieutenant, he wanted to be with us. Him and I were on the boxing team. I think it was Tuck. I told you about him, Tuck. And so he ended up getting killed, but he was doing what he wanted to do. And there was not anything on the island that I could see as far as dwellings and whatever. It was just desert all the way through there. You see, this was our first time. There was death everywhere, And I'll tell you, that was alarming, and it opened your eyes. And there were times where you couldn't. You had to go on. You know, your buddies. If you got a buddy that was wounded or lost a leg or whatever, you could take care of them as much as you can, but you've got to move on, because that's the corpsman's job, to take care of that sort of thing. And so, I don't know. It's just it's hard to say. I've had people ask me, why did it take so long to take Iwo, and why did it take so long to I understand that you ran out of supplies, and we had some parachuted into us. That area where we were running out of supplies, I mean, all hell was breaking loose through there. I mean, there was just gunfire everywhere. And they parachuted food into us. C4s, I think it is. Parachuted food into us, and parachuted ammunition. We were running out of ammunition, something just unbelievable how fast you could run out of ammunition. And that was one thing I was kind of involved in. And when those boxes come down, sometimes the cargo is going in the wrong direction, and you have to get out there and catch it. And so I did that a few times. What I wanted to say, though, was that getting back to the same area. This is the same area where we're getting fired on, and I leaped into. We were running for cover around Motor Airfield number 2, running for cover, and I leaped into this bomb hole, and my buddy to my right did the same thing. And then after we jumped in there, I got hit in the cheekbone with an anti-aircraft shell. And then I looked over to my buddy to see if he was all right, and his whole right side was destroyed. His arm was gone, and his head was ripped all over his body. His head was back about that far. It was on the slope of that bomb hole, and the blood was running down to his body. And boy, that'll you really have to grab a hold of yourself, and you can't look anymore. You have to move on, and so that was Motor Airfield number 2, I think it was, yeah. So that was the only time that we had to have cargo shipped into us. Was about the middle of that battle, and then they were able to come up from the rear. And do you know what a DWK is? DWK? It's the landing boat and water. It's a duck out in the water, and then they come ashore on the wheels, and they're hauling cargo. And they were coming up behind us with a load of cargo, and it was hit. Gee, well, it just flattened that thing out like a pancake. There was just nothing left. The wheels were flat on the ground, and there were 2 drivers in there. And there's just no way in the world that they're going to uncover bodies like that that are scattered all over. And that made us think a little bit also. And the teamwork that was going on, people guys trying to help out and jump in and all that. The teamwork was great. I had real good training with the Carlson Raiders. I've fired every weapon there is, and it's a good thing, because there were times where, my rifle was shot out of my hands at one point. And this happened early in the fight. It happened right on the beach. I mean, I got hit, in the hip, and then and as I got further on in, the rifle was shot out of my hand, and it numbed my left hand where I couldn't use it. So I laid my rifle in my crutch in my arm, and I'd bend way over to fire into a cave and whatever, or if I saw gun smoke coming out, why I just peppered that thing, and the numbness to my hand started to clear up towards the middle of the day. But I don't know what hit my rifle, but it was big enough to do that kind of, and rip it out of my hands. But there are so many things that happen on that island. I could just go on and on, and I want to go on and on as much as I can and cover the whole thing. And it was a 24-hour deal all day long, gunfire. And we had no time to, the stretcher bearers came in and hauled the Marines out that were dead and all that. Ray Rotker, who was a buddy of mine from Stillwater, Minnesota, and if you don't mind I tell this story, what is a buddy? What is a buddy? Do you mind my inserting a little bit? Okay. What is a buddy? And this happened in Camp Pendleton. And I used to run between the barracks. And Ray later on told me what he was doing. He'd watch me run between the barracks. And he didn't like me at all. Didn't know me, but he didn't like me. So I got a kick out of that. And well, I says, well, why didn't you like me? He says, well, you look like a smart-ass old bee, and I just didn't like you. So we were out passing the football one day, and out there in the middle of the parade field, and Ray says, let's go in and do some boxing. We were both on the boxing team. And I says, okay. And so what took place was we went into the men's room, because it was a pretty big area. Went into the men's room, and so we were going at it. We had the gloves on. We were going at it, and we could just pound the hell out of each other, not even hurt each other. And I said, hold it, Ray, hold it. He said, what's the matter? I said, there's a banana peeling on the floor, and somebody's going to step on that. One of us is going to step on that and break our damn neck. He starts laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? He says, well, I put the banana peeling there on the floor hoping you'd step on it, slip on it, and I could hit you on the way down. And we turned out to be the best of buddies. One night, Ray and I were covering, we were outpost point, and we were covering, and more than covering for our buddies so they could get a little bit of sleep and all that. And as I was looking, I had a air-cooled machine gun at that time, and as we were in this machine gun, and I was covering the guys that were trying to catch a little shut-eye, and Ray was off to my left, maybe about 75 feet, and he also had an air-cooled machine gun. And I don't know, around 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, someplace in there. My watch started at midnight, at 12 o'clock, and Ray. And I was seeing some white glistening things it was white, and they were bobbing and bobbing and bobbing. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Then all of a sudden I got alarmed that the Japanese were creeping in on us. And I got Ray's attention and signaled to look ahead, and then I went like this. And those Japanese were getting closer and closer and closer, and I decided that we're going to open fire right now, because I don't want them to get so goddamn close that they could throw grenades at us. So I gave Ray the signal to fire, and we both fired at the same time. So I don't know how many Japanese are in that bunch, but that was the hair standing on the back of your neck on that one. And the Japanese are brave. Not, uh, they will fight. They will fight. And they're good riflemen. So the next morning when it's daylight, I wanted to see if there were some Japanese laying around or whatever, but we could see where they drug them off. There were blood stains and where they drugged their bodies off. And so I have no idea how many Japanese is in that bunch, but Ray and I really peppered away with our machine guns. And I love that air cooled. And Ray and I we did a lot of things on Iwo. We really did. And not that we were doing things that were unorthodox or anything like that. We were trying to take that island, and we took it the best way we could take it. And so Ray and I volunteered a lot of times for sniper hunting. We did a lot of sniper hunting. And we had the signals between us. We would talk to each other, when I do this, or like that, you know what I mean. And one early morning, it was Ray got shot through the neck, and the best thing I ever did when I got back to stateside was to visit the family, and that was very emotional, and I'm glad I did it, went back. And then Ray, the thing that bothers me about a few things is that I'll talk about it. I don't care who's sitting there, dignitary or whoever, I'll talk about it. And what I didn't like was when we were heading towards Iwo Jima, and we knew that some of us were not going to make it, and we made remarks like, boy, if I get an arm shot off, a leg shot off, or my eyes put out, or my personal items might get hit and destroyed, I want to stay here on Iwo. And if I get killed, I want to stay on Iwo. And that was all, we were all thinking that way. We were on board that ship going into Iwo Jima. And I was one of them. I said, if I lose a leg, I don't want to go back home, be a burden to my family. Well, what makes me mad is that during the battle, we could see the cemetery, the white crosses going up, just unbelievable. And just one right after another, row after row. And this happened when the battle was over with. And we walked by we were talking, gibbering and all this sort of thing, but when we came upon this cemetery there at Mount Suribachi, that's where the cemetery was at, we all of a sudden, I don't know why, we shut up, didn't say anything, just walked by and we knew that our buddies were down underneath that black sand, and there were some that were lined up along grave spots that were not used yet, and there were bodies tied, their legs were tied together, and one poncho tied over their head. And found out later on in time that all those, after the war was over with, Japan wanted the bodies taken off of Iwo Jima and moved to Guam. And so that was done. And then Ray was moved from Guam to the Punch Bowl. Well, that bugged us, That was supposed to be our island. And that's where we wanted to be buried, and we wanted to be buried together. Now that we're scattered all over the country, but we wanted to be buried together. That's what we wanted. And Japan wouldn't stand for it. And I'm going to be careful when I ever get into stuff like that. When we got to the end of that island and we took it, with no kidding, we walked to the edge of that island on the north end, looked out over the water, And the strangest feeling came over us. We looked at each other and says, well, fellas, I guess this is it. Might as well head back. It was the strangest thing I ever experienced. There was no more ground to take. That was the end of it. We were way up at the other end of the island when all this was taking place, and it was strange to try to get understand what's going on, but it was just a naked island, with, so to speak. There was not anything on the island that I could see as far as dwellings and whatever. It was just desert all the way through there. After we took the island, and then after we were marching back, and all of this gun fire and whatever was, you could see all the markings everywhere on the trees and whatever, or where the bullets would hit the palm trees. And so we marched all the way back 5 miles to about Suribachi. So we turned around, started marching back, and so I got ahead of myself here just a little bit when I was talking about the helmets, the packs, and the blood stains and all that, because that's what I was looking at as we were marching back towards Mount Suribachi, where our troop ship was anchored, ready to take us on board. And some funny things, some things are funny. And so the troop ship turned the stern and backed into the island because there was so much coral. So they backed in because the stern goes like this. And as we were mounting onto the troop ship, we had to walk through some coral and to get out there to that troop ship and get on that ladder. And so as we were doing this, there was Higgins boats, 2 of them, that pulled up alongside of the troop ship, unloading wounded Marines. And I love the Navy. They were so careful when they handled those wounded guys and getting them into the hoist and getting them on board. And as they got on board, the Navy guys would jump and grab a hold of the stretcher, keep it from swinging and all this sort of thing. I mean, they were just right in there, dedicated, and I'll never forget that sight. What dedication, they were so careful with the wounded guys. And they just helped wherever they could help, and they took clothes off and replaced them with kind of pajamas like and whatever. And they were great. And so then what happened on my end of it, going up this steel ladder, I was about the 3rd guy in line at the top of that ladder. And the one sailor, he says, all of a sudden he just popped up and he says, "God, you guys stink." Well, but I got a kick out of this one sailor saying, "God, you guys stink," Well, we hadn't had a bath in a month and a half, and I sure as heck was going to brush my teeth and find myself on my back with a toothbrush sticking out of my mouth, So there are things like that. It's interesting the concerns you have when you're in battle like that. And I wrote in my book a little bit about hygiene and the hygiene problem. And you just fought the idea of going to the bathroom and dig a hole and whatever, because you didn't want to get shot in the ass, So I put in my book that, and I said, I described how you lay on your side, take your trenching tool, and dig a little trench, and then you roll over, and that's the way. And you'd be surprised how many people ask questions about that. How did you do that? And I also get comments, I never thought of something like that you have to do something like that. I'm probably the first guy in the world to bring something like that to surface, you know, and which is okay with me. When we loaded up there on Iwo Jima, loaded up on our troop ship, and we moved on out towards, like I say, above the Marshall Islands area. And two Marines died, not at the same time, but at different times. And I was in the color guard on both of them. And I'll tell you, that's something that you can't forget. And the first burial that I saw, that's the first burial I ever did see, was on wood plank. And he was covered with kind of a gray-looking material, and his feet were tied together, and then his neck was tied, and they covered him with they covered him with the American flag, and played the taps and all that. And then when the body was ordered to be released, I heard the body sliding down this plank, and boy, what a feeling that was. And then it left the plank, and then I waited for it to hit the water, and when that hit the water, that was unbelievable. And his feet came out first as he was sliding down that plank. His feet came out first, and then and were tied together, and the cover the flag stayed in place, of course. Then the rest of his body came out, and his head was the gray bag was also tied around his head, around his neck, and so on. And over he went. And to hear the rifle fire and the gunshots out at sea, I'll never forget that, you know. And I picture one day I was going to, I do a little bit of artwork, and I don't want to get too vulgar about things, and I was going to sketch a body when they have weights between their legs, so they will stay down. If they don't do that, well, they'll float to the surface. And so they have weights between their legs. And I pictured the body as it hit the bottom, feet first, and just waving with the waves of the current. And I thought, you know, I ought to do a sketch of that, and somehow maybe title it, "This is our buddy's grave. This is where he's going to stay." And he's down there all by himself. He has fish that swim by, friends that swim by. And I could do it, but I don't know if people, boy, this guy's vulgar. But I don't know. I still think about maybe doing something like that. I don't know. The ocean floor is covered with bodies like this, and it's a sanctuary. The ocean is a sanctuary. That's their grave, and I agreed. You know, if I get hit or whatever, have to get buried at sea. That's what I want. I want to be buried at sea. And one of the buddies there said, "Well, what if you were a few miles away, you know, because of the ship moving all the time?" And I said, "That's all right." I said, "That's all one grave down there. That belongs to us." That's what I said. And so I don't know. I might do it someday. I don't know. After the Marines were loaded on board, I would say, I estimated just about, we were pretty darn close to Marshall Islands, because we were kind of headed towards Alaska, because there was a storm there in Washington. And so then we were ordered to go down the shore down to San Francisco, and there was a storm there. and then so they would be decided to go all the way down to San Diego, and that's where we ended up in San Diego and got discharged and all that. A lot of people have asked me, says, "Well, what'd you do after you were discharged?" And I says, "Well, the first thing I did is when when they dropped those two bombs there in Japan on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we were on our way to Japan to do occupation duty, and then they dropped those two bombs. Well, then Japan surrendered, but we went on into Japan, and so we were the first troops to land in Nagasaki or in Kyushu, which is right below Saga, and so the way I got to know the people there in Japan, people were asking me about people, how they treat you, and really they treated us nice. I mean, there was no problems at all, and it was just they were nice to us. There was no hostility or anything like that, and so. I learned to be I was an MP in Japan for 8 months, and so then when we went to when the war was over with, we went to L.A. or San Diego, and I got discharge papers and all that. First thing I thought of, well, I'm going to go to the police station there in L.A. Did I tell you about that? Yeah. So I'm going to the police station in L.A. and apply for a police job. And so I was standing in line. When I finally got up to the sergeant's desk, he says, "How tall are you?" I says, 5'9". "Too short, next." That's all there was to that. So I thought, well, the heck with this. I'm leading him to something. The heck with this. I'm going to hitchhike the rest of the way up to California, and I'm in Washington, Seattle area. And then when I got into Seattle, I hitchhiked to Spokane. And I started looking for want ads for jobs or whatever. And I saw this one ad in there, chicken rancher. Well, shoot, I was raised on a farm, so I know all about chickens. So I hitchhiked out about 4 miles, I think it was, to this ranch. And this guy, he was Japanese, and he says, "You don't want to work for me, do you?" I said, "Sure, I'll work for you." So I worked for him for about 4 months. They were the nicest people. They just couldn't do enough for me. So there's a lot of things people don't know in this country, and that's one of them. Well, I knew that I didn't want to be a chicken rancher for the rest of my life, you know. And so I hitchhiked to Mitchell, South Dakota. That's my hometown, and well, yeah. And I looked for work there in Mitchell, and I was a pretty good mechanic. I went to work for a Ford Motor Company, and I worked for them for about 2.5 years. And then I decided that I didn't want to do that the rest of my life, because at that time they didn't have good ventilation. I was working down in the basement of this Ford Motor Company, and there was hardly any ventilation down there at all. The air was always blue, you know, and I was getting boils in the back of my neck because of those. So I thought, well, I'm getting out of here, and so I just drifted from one job to the next, and I ended up in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and went to work for an electrician for about 4 years, and then went back to San Diego, hoping to find work out there, because I kind of wanted to get away from the winters, you know, stuff like that. So that worked out real well for me there in San Diego.
Well, when was the last time you saw Ira Hayes?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that one. I got so much. you got to sit there and pull it out. Anyway, in 1947, and I was uptown Mitchell, South Dakota, and I didn't get to see Ira this time, but anyway, here's a little story that took place. And so I was uptown there in Mitchell, and I was, taking my time and all that sort of thing. And Ira came all the way from Arizona to see me. He got up to the farm and everything to see me. And Mom's Irish, and she says what she wants to say. And so she told what happened was that Ira came out to the farm to see me. Well, I was uptown a little bit too long, and he had to leave. And Mom told me, she says, this Marine come walking into the kitchen door there, and she says, he was some damn Indian. I couldn't laugh over that one too. He was some damn Indian. Sure did like Indians. So, in some ways, the last time I saw Ira was back in about 19. I'd be guessing 46, 47. Well, I can safely say about 1946, 47, in that area, because I was discharged in 46, and so was he, and we were all busy, trying to, get our stuff together and be on the road. Can I drift away a little bit and talk about my wife for a minute? Okay. Well, she passed away here in 2009. She had, I'll think of it. Anyway, she had a fear of a lot of water. She didn't want to fly, just a lot of fear. And so to make a long story short, we got married in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and the way I met her was that Passion play. Have you heard of that, Passion? Yeah, okay. And so they came to the school to get fill-ins for the cast. And I volunteered for Moses. And Carol volunteered to be one of the Punches Pilots fangirl. And the guys there in Mitchell, you Moses, forget it, And so one day on one of the plays, when my part was over with, as far as Moses, I got to the end of the curtain there, and I had to turn sideways to get past Carol, and she had this flimsy goddamn gown on. You could just about see through it, and I had to look down, of course, to make sure I didn't step on her feet, and I saw something else, looking down, I thought, boy, I'm gonna have to check this out. And so one evening, every Saturday, we always had a dance, and Lawrence Welk was he was the band leader that night. And so I was out there jitterbugging, and I saw Carol sitting up in the bleachers with her brother. I thought, my God, I'm gonna go up there and see if she'll dance with me. So I went up there and I says, could I have this dance? She said, sure. Jumps up halfway down the aisle. She says, will you teach me how to jitterbug? And I said, sure. So that's kind of how we met.
With all that you saw on Iwo Jima, how has it affected your life since then? Because you talk about it quite freely, but how has it affected you as you go through the years when you recount all these memories?
When I saw all this death and whatever?
Yeah. how's it affected your life? And
Well, it still affects me today. You know, when I think about what happened here on the island, and see bodies mutilated, um, it has given me a different thought on life, and uh, how important it is to um, make every day valuable. Don't waste, any of your days, and just more or less pretty much that way. Was just be good to people. It just changed. Before why I was kind of a wild nut, and I just didn't. I just raised hell all the time. But after Iwo Jima, I did change. I thought, gee, let's don't be wasting our time here. We're only going to be here for so long. Because it happened so quick there on Iwo. Those guys' lives were snapped out just like that. They're gone. They were joyful and cracking jokes, and then to see him just being mutilated by artillery. It's just, well, the first time I saw it, it just took the breath out of me, really. I mean, I just couldn't believe what happened to Ray, and I was pretty well stuffed up for quite a few days on that one, and so what I mean about changing my life was that no more kidding around. I wanted to be clean about things and help people. I wanted to make my life useful all of a sudden. Where before I didn't think about stuff like that. But when I saw those guys being killed on Iwo there, all I wanted to do was help.
the other question I had was, as you're seeing things like this during the battle, were there other Marines that just couldn't take what they were seeing? Were there other Marines that had just difficulty and couldn't go on?
Yeah, I was going to put it in my book, and I didn't do it. There were times I didn't want to put things in my book because I didn't want people to get the wrong impression. A Marine is supposed to be a tough Marine. Well, that's not so. The Marines are human. They're also human. And so when we hit that beach, and I was trying to help this guy, one Marine with the phosphorus all over his back, and I got up and I jumped over this dead Japanese, and at the same time I looked over and I saw a Marine cuddled up in a bomb hole, and I thought maybe I could see he was shaking and all that. He was about maybe 30 feet from me. And so what I wanted to do, I saw him shaking all over, and so I ran over there to him, and he couldn't answer me. And so then I realized that he was in shock. We hadn't been in maybe 30 feet in on the beach, and he couldn't go any further. He was in shock. Now that doesn't mean, the reason I didn't want to put that in the book is that he wasn't a good man, because he was a good man. And he couldn't help it because he went into shock. And so I asked for his rifle, and we were in a bomb hole, both of us. I asked for his rifle, and he wouldn't give it to me. And so then I said, well, at least let me have your bayonet. What I wanted to do was mark that bomb hole, that there was a wounded Marine down here. and that's how the corpsman would identify wounded Marines or anything like that. We'd have some kind of marker, and so I took his bayonet and got to the top of the bomb hole and jammed the thing into the ground and put his helmet on it. I took his. We have two helmets, or we have a fiber and then a steel, and I took the fiber and I put the bayonet in the ground and put the helmet over it like that, and to indicate, hey, there's somebody down here. And I put the steel helmet back on his head, and I pounded him on the helmet like this, like this, that to him. He couldn't talk to me at all. He was just shivering. So, you know, gee, well, a guy going through something like that, he wants to be a man, but he can't do it, you know? That's tough. That's tough. I want to swear, but I'm not going to do it. But so to this day, I don't know whatever happened to him. You get your training, you train hard, and to say that the tough Marines, wow, the only way we're tough is we got a strong back, strong arms, strong legs, and all that. But the mind still has to work with the situation, and so we're tough and all that, but we are still human. I mean, we will shed a tear, and when Ray was hit through the neck there, you know, and I didn't feel ashamed. I shed a tear, you know, and Tucker the same thing, you know, and just pat him on the chest. See you later, buddy, you know, stuff like that.
Have you ever wondered why you were able to handle it better than this other soldier or others that?
Yeah, I was. I hate to say it, but Mom was pretty. She had a bad temper, and all my life I got a lot of beatings, and I worked hard on the farm and didn't have hardly any clothes to wear, and my toes are always sticking out of my shoes, and so nothing was given to me. I just wore what I had on, and so constantly I thought about this quite a bit. Why was I different? And that was the reason. It was because I was raised with hardly nothing, you know, and haircut was unbelievable. Your hair grew down to your shoulders, you know. Mom could not keep up with that many kids, and Dad was a guy that just wanted to get his chores done. There were two working people, but Mom was mean. She was. The last beating I got from her was, and I didn't do anything wrong, you know. She was just frustrated now that I think about it. And at that time I was about 15 years old, and I took over the milk route there at Mitchell, and I brought home one loaf of bread, and I was supposed to bring two. Well, she just beat the living daylights out of me with a stove poker, steel stove poker. And I was starting to see black out of this eye over here. And I realized I got to do something, so I reached up and took that stove poker away from her. And so I didn't have an easy life. I worked hard. And so that's where it comes from farm work. In other words, I could endure the discomforts that were around. No, not that we didn't deserve to have some comfort. It's just that we were poor. We were poor people. And my uncle was in the First World War, and he was a Marine corporal. And he was killed in Bella Woods. Have you ever heard of Bella Woods? Yeah. He was killed in Bella Woods, and I darn near had a chance to go with it. Well, I had darn near had a chance to go to Bella Woods, but the flight was canceled. Now I got another flight coming up, honor flight, that'll be going on. So anyway, when I was a little kid, Grandma used to have that picture hanging above the bed. And I used to crawl up in the bed and just look at that picture the longest time. And I wanted to be like him. And so he was killed in Bella Woods. He was a corporal. And he was buried along some railroad tracks there in Bella Woods. And then after the war was over with, well, they dug him up and brought him back to Letcher, South Dakota. So that's where he's at. That's where I got my encouragement to join the Marine Corps. Be like him.
You were starting to talk about you were commander of the VFW.
Yeah, for 10 years. And then I was also a district commander. And they wanted me to go up for state, but I just, that's just too involvement. You know, you get into that kind of stuff, boy, you're busy. I just find a strong desire to talk about the war over there and Vietnam and Korea and the problems they had and all. And at one of my meetings one time when I was commander, and we were trying to get Korea veterans benefits. And this goes about 1949, 48, 49, someplace in there. And the Korean veterans didn't have benefits. And I happened to be commander at that time there in Boulder. And they got to where people in the country were just nailing Washington. Why this and why that? Why hasn't this been done? And we got a petition sent through all the posts, and all the posts had to sign it, allowing D.C. to like Korean veterans at that time, have benefits. See, they didn't have benefits of any kind at one time through the government. And so I knew that that's not right, because they failed. So at one of my meetings, I got this petition, and doggone it, when I see something that is not right, I try to do something about it. And the Korean veterans, gee, it was, you know, they faced, at my meeting, I just come out, they faced the same weapons we did. They walked the same ground we did with grenades. Now I want you guys to sign this petition, period. Boy, they all signed it. I feel pretty good about that. So I was involved in this, converting the DC over to taking care of their veterans. That's the way it should be said, their veterans.
Since you've been involved with VFW and Cooper's Troopers, and you've gotten involved with other Marines and other Iwo Jima veterans, how has that helped you deal with what you've seen and how you've gone through life since then? Has it helped you deal with it better? Being able to talk with other veterans who've been through the same experiences?
Oh, yeah, in a way, yeah. Because I've certainly been approached by that kind of questions, you know, because the guys are curious. They want to know, what am I walking into? Is that what you mean?
No, it's just after you've seen all this,
Oh.
does it help to be around other veterans who were at Iwo or in similar situations, like the Cooper's Troopers or VFW? Does it help you deal with this better?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have no problem. Yeah. And I'm just glad I'm involved, you know, with the veterans, you know, and yeah, I can deal with it easier. It's easier for me to deal with it. You're going to be approached, that's for sure, when these guys find out that you were through battle, and right away they want to know what it was like, and I had one guy ask me, he says, what did it feel like to lose a buddy? You know, and so they were trying to get their minds adjusted to meet the situation as it comes along. And so, yeah, I got a lot of questions from veterans that wanted to know what it was like. And I try to be ready when these young fellows come up to me. I've done a lot of talks with the Marines, young Marines also. Like there in Guam, I had a young Marine asked if he could ask me a question. I said, sure. He says, what's it like to lose a real buddy? And I try to be ready all the time to answer questions like that, you know. And but this is the first time I had a question like that. But I was ready for him. And I says, well, to lose a buddy, you really haven't lost him. He's still in your heart.
This is so important that we get this so that other people will know later.
Yeah. Well, I know the reason I like being in this, because you got what I've told you here now, you can spread the word to others, because there's a lot of curiosity out there right now. There was a day back in the First World War that nobody, you know, was that curious. When I came back from the Second World War and came onto the farm, Dad and Mom never asked me any questions about Iwo Jima. I didn't expect them to. I wasn't expecting anybody to ask me questions about Iwo. What was it like over there? You know, Dad would tell me. He would give me chores to do. Here I was, 21 years old, 22, and he started giving me orders out there on that farm. And I thought, well, I got to get away from him. And Mom the same way. She never. I wasn't expecting anybody to run after me or anything like that, you know. But it would have been nice if they could have asked me a question like, "Did you lose a lot of your buddies over there?" And what was it like, you know? But they never asked me any questions at all. And so I didn't get aware of that until later on in years, that how important it is that the future generation coming up should know what it's like. And that's the reason I wrote my book. And I wrote it from what I saw. I didn't want to put everybody else's, oh, I saw this guy and I saw that guy. I didn't want to do that. And I wanted to more or less write so as the people could say, well, he was there, he saw it, you know, and that's the answer I want.
Have you published your book?
Oh yeah, it was published in 1998, and it's doing real well. And what I did, it's the title of the book is it's a long title, but I had a purpose. We were in the first waves of steel Amtraks who landed on Iwo Jima, and that's the title. My book is not very thick, but it's my whole book is to the point. I didn't. I decided to write it that way. I didn't want to write about everybody else because it deters the reader, you know. And so I decided I'll write about what I saw, and I'm glad I did it. I had a lady walk up to me and she says, are you Jack Thurman, the author? I said, yes, I am. And she says, well, I have some kind of a war book. And she says, I would like to trade a book with you. Would you trade a book with me? I says, no, I won't. And she had that alarmed look on her face. Why? I says, that book is sacred. I'm talking about buddies that were killed, buried, you know. I just don't trade that book. That's just what I told her, and she walks off. But I have questions that are catch you off guard. But I took care of that one.
Well, that's understood.
It's just the way I feel. In other words, it's not a trading commodity. And I do charge for it because I got some expenses involved. And what I do, I take a certain percentage and send it down to the Marine Corps Association. And then there's Toys for Tots. And I don't send money to all of them, but I do have those two. And the Marine Corps Association takes care of children that lost their dad, and the wife also that's trying to raise the kids. I want to get back to the March event that I was in on, and why I wanted to be back on Iwo. And these people were asking me, why do you want to go back to Iwo, you know? And I wanted to go back to Iwo because I know roughly where those two M-tracks are. They're right next to that mountain. And I could stand there on the beach and I could just point my finger to where those two M-tracks are. One here, and then this is where we were, and then another one here, and 28th Regiment. And I says, I want to go back, and those guys, it's 67 years since they've had anybody visit the shoreline. And what I want to do is say a prayer, and I want to talk when I'm standing on that shoreline. I'm here, fellows. I can walk, I can talk, and I can pray. And I said a prayer. And the guys that were with me asked if they could take their hats off and listen to my prayer, and I said, sure. So they gathered around, and what I did, I said my prayer, and then I put in there that this is your grave, this is your cemetery, and I will be back. I don't have flowers now, but I will be back. And that's all I wanted to do, was that. When I put my foot on the ground there on that airport, my foot really felt funny. It did, it really felt funny. To think of all the dead Marines that were lost on that island, 6,400, about 23,000 wounded. I thought of it at the time that there in March, when we were visiting Iwo Jima, and they had a band playing, and they laid a wreath, 3-foot diameter wreath, beautiful, on the beach there, and the Marine band was lined up with the Japan flag band, and they all played together their national anthem. And I got to thinking during that time that, you know, the idea of Japan bombing Pearl Harbor, all we got was Iwo Jima, but we didn't get to keep it. And Japan is it all right for me to get into this a little bit? Okay, Japan exercised the, when one country takes another country, then they got to return it. Well, now they're talking countries. See, Japan, or Iwo Jima, is an island. The Hawaiian Islands are an island. Philippines are an island. And as far as I'm concerned, Iwo Jima belongs to us. We took Iwo. We have nothing. We walked away with nothing. So I just really feel that Iwo Jima belongs to us, because right, the way it is now, we don't have anything. When we were on Iwo Jima, Suribachi, I thought something was kind of funny when I got up there. They had a nice shrine. It had the Japanese flag on the right-hand side as you walked up to the shrine, and the American flags to the left side. Well, that hit me wrong right there. And when I said to the group there, I says, this is wrong. The flag arrangement is not right. And one of the guys asked, well, what would you do? I says, well, I look at it this way, that the American flag should be in line like the President of the United States when he's doing a talk. The flag is right behind him and other flags behind him and behind him and so on. And that is the way I feel that it should be done. There is no way you can put the American flag on one side, on the right side, and the Japanese flag on the right side. It's just impossible. Buddies were saying, Jack, you're going to get in trouble. And I says, well, things are not right. And why did they, cede this island to where you can't see what's going on? That's what they wanted. They wanted this island to look like one big bush. And there was nothing we could do. We couldn't dig into anything, and I couldn't find those caves. But I'd like to go back and see if I can locate those caves, because it's important. Well, I went back because, like I say, those guys never had a prayer, never had any flowers, visitors, anything. And I didn't think about that until a few months ago. The first part of this year, I guess, I thought, God dang it, I'm going back to Iwo. And like I say, those guys have never had a prayer, and so that's the reason I want to go back to Iwo Jima.